Drop position is a split stance with width between the feet. Ball side foot is the one in front. The ball is pocketed on the player's side, allowing him or her to read the game by slightly pausing and not getting called with a carry since the hand is on the side, not underneath the ball. Let's take a look at this clip again. I would start off drilling from this stationary position with both feet equal, not split. The drill would start with the pound dribble in front of the foot with the hand dropping. In this case, it would be right hand, right foot. From this stationary position, split your stance to feel the drop. I like to utilize grip mats on the floor to hold form accountability of your feet. Both feet are on the ground on the drop to really transfer the momentum from back foot to front foot. And with both feet on the ground, will allow the player to counter or shoot right away. Notice the back foot push off here. Drop off a partial step, not a super long step. The partial step can come off any type of dribble, a turn dribble, crossover, through the legs, behind the back. Here is the drop. Let us get detailed now with the pocket and back foot. I want you to see the pocketing of the ball. Notice how the right arm is extended for control where the ball will float with the hand on the side. Usually when a player has trouble finding the pocket, that player's arm is usually bent and not extended. After the pocket, let's really pay attention to the back foot. Notice how the foot is angled to get all of the inside of the back foot on the push-off. This right here is a great demonstration. Now let's take a look at partial steps with different dribble moves. Now I'm going to show you different ways to get into the drop position. Here, getting into drop off the skip. Skipping off the inside foot. If the player skipped off the outside foot, I would call it an inverted skip. Players skip usually to read the game while dribbling. All right, look at Murray here, getting into a drop position mid-drive off the skip. The skip allows him to read the game while dribbling. Dribble releases allow the player to release the ball, counting as a dribble, but their steps are not necessarily controlled by that dribble, as is the case when a player is driving the ball. Dribble releases occur in front or across the player's body. This clip shows multiple dribble releases across Garland's body. The first two dribble releases show that Garland can naturally take 3 steps between the dribble. Players like to stutter their feet or use the release time to set something up. Here Garland dribble releases across his body and sets up a skip to get into a good drop position. Skip to behind gets Shai into a drop stance, and for him to find a good drop position to attack out of, he has to pop his feet in a way to re-stimulate that momentum or energy transfer from back foot to front foot. We call this delaying his drop. Doncic, like Harden, when in isolation, like to keep their drop stance and mess around with dribble moves while keeping their drop stance. They will use delays for that reignition of momentum to attack. Here Doncic pops his feet twice, 2 reignitions in a way. The first one beginning on his through the legs dribble, and we call this a delay through. This one's pretty hard to see in general. As the ball touches his right hand after the through the legs, he would be ready to fire out by using the delay through in the beginning of the through the legs dribble. The second one is the delay drop that we saw from Shai on the previous clip. Doncic found his drop after the through the legs, but needed to reignite it because he was not ready to go initially. Thus the delay drop. Harden more of the times, instead of popping his feet and attacking, delaying the drop, he readjusts his outside foot. An outside dig, we would call it. That would help re-stimulate that energy transfer from back foot to front foot. Inside digs are taking the inside foot and digging it back into the ground, almost a redoing the drop position like a reset, where maybe you're seeing something late. Bounds are skipping laterally, or more technically speaking, pulling off one leg after transferring energy from the opposite way. Here, Durant pulls laterally off his left leg. It's advantageous because it can easily create separation for you. This concept of pulling is an important skill I'll cover more on future skill tapes. Bounds, like partial steps, can be started with any dribble move. Push is pulling forward off the front leg, used to take up space between you and the defender. Hardaway here finds a great drop position off the push. Drop pivots are used to find a drop position while holding a player's space on the court. This is done by pivoting their back foot backwards. All right, this usually happens more in triple threat situations, but it can also happen while the player is dribbling the ball. I would drill with the player's feet equal to start and comfortably wide so that when they do pivot, they can really feel it. Reverse pushes are pulling backwards off the player's back foot. Here, Shai reverse pushes and his right foot is floating backwards, able to pivot back into his drop position, which, like we talked about in the previous clip, is the drop pivot. Drop through is not a separate move. It is a counter to the drop. When practicing, the player should feel the drop position to attack, then field it through, hence drop through. Notice the back foot push off on the through. The whole inside of the foot is definitely on the ground. Look at the foot angle. It's a perfect picture. Lastly, look at the timing of the push off on the through. It occurs as soon as the ball touches Lillard's left hand. Great example here of covering distance on a push with a through the legs dribble. You can really see finding that drop position thinking attack. See the momentum and pause? This is where James is now reading to counter with a through. Great example showing Shai reading the game from his drop position. You can tell by how his back foot pushes off on the drop he had an intent to go. Drop through as a counter. Shai reignited his drop by popping his feet after the drop through. Again, we call this a delay drop. Players who skip or push forward or bound laterally may counter quickly with a through. This split through will get them to the drop position that they are accustomed to. Drop behind the back should have the same exact footwork as the drop through. Here, Lillard uses a delay to find that good drop attacking position. Textbook example here. Chris Paul gets to a good drop position off a partial step in a delay. You can see him attack and his momentum breaks instinctually before he decides to counter. Counters with the crossover. Now take a look at this dig on the crossover and see his hands are low and both hands are close together on the cross. This dig, coupled with these close together hands, adds to the protection of the cross in front of someone. This is textbook. Harden and Doncic play out of their drop stance. Harden uses more outside digs when he goes. Crossover is a read here. You can just see it. Now pay attention to his footwork after the cross, getting to the rim with no dribble after the crossover. This takes some practice to get the skill down. Remember, your travel count starts when you gather, and you can take that extra step after the gather. All right, this is the Tim Hardaway killer crossover, but this is done as reads, not as a move. Rivers skipped and saw something middle, so he elected to split through to get a middle. He needed a delay to find that good drop position. Now he needed it to counter when the defender changed his stance. You can see him change his stance, he reads it, and counters with a drop cross. Nothing predetermined here. Same thing with Curry here. Nothing predetermined. Multiple drop skills here. Multiple drop skills. Great to train multiple layers to get the mind to slow down and make reads. Skip to split through, with Durant pushing forward after the split through. You can really see him reading on the drop. Under dribble, another way to counter when attacking in a drop position. After the under dribble, to get back to a drop position, the player would need to exchange their feet, or foot exchange. Foot exchange leads into splitting the feet. Harden is in a good drop position here. Usually I see under dribbles used after some sort of through. Drop through, partial through, split through. The foot exchange in this Doncic clip is much clearer than the Harden clip before this. The inverted drop positioning is same as the drop, stance-wise. The only difference is the ball hand is the same as the back foot. Push cross work great out of the inverted drop. A push cross is a crossover completed with less moving parts than the drop cross, so it's safer and quicker. Key point is that the ball leaves first before the legs on the cross step, and the ball is pushed overhand. Chris Paul likes to set up his dead ball, bring the ball down the court, early direct pick and rolls with this setup. Skip to inverted drop to a push cross. In and out moves are usually taught as selling the push cross. This Shai clip was a read, where the inverted drop triggers a push cross, but Shai wants to keep going forward, so he uses a turn dribble partial step and go. Put together, looks like a heck of an in and out move. All right, let's re-examine the under dribble. It would naturally lead to an inverted drop position, and if Harden wants to attack forward with the right hand, he can partial with the turn dribble, or he can use an inside dig. Here is a good example. Harden uses the digs quite frequently. Multiple drop skills here, full throttle. Got a full menu here. After the partial step, Curry uses a behind the back dribble and has the same exact footwork as the under dribble. Naturally, this footwork leads to an inverted drop unless the player foot exchanges. Open drop is another position to attack out of. It is one where the player's feet are much wider than the shoulder length, and unlike the drop or inverted drop, the player's feet are on the same plane. They are squared, not split. The benefit is that the stance, where you are at your widest to attack, can create more chances for an angle versus a defender. The issue is that the open drop push-off might lead to more lateral, less downhill drives than the drop position. Now let's look at Harden's drop stance ISO game again. A lot of times when he outside digs, he gets himself wider than the defender, creating a driving angle. And this ends up looking like an open drop at the point of attack. Last section of the tape, let's talk about pull-up shots out of the drop position. The shot out of the drop position should have the feel of a drop and go to a shot. So the footwork is such that the body weight is going forward on the outside front foot, with the back foot stepping in to complete the 2-foot balance of the pull-up. Opposite of the drop shot, the reset shot read is where the player shifts his or her weight back from the front to the back foot, bringing the front foot back to complete the balance of the 2-foot pull-up. This shows you how taking an extended step takes Leonard out of a good drop position and limits the number of options he has because his back foot is off the ground. The more partial steps players take, the more flexible they will be to read and react. Foot replacing both feet or popping your feet can happen with any stance you are in and is a real effective way to get both feet balanced quickly.